This podcast is made possible by you, the supporters of WPLN and WNXP, Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's January 10th, 2025, and city and state leaders have one message to everyone in Middle Tennessee today. Stay home if you can. Even if you come from a place that gets lots of snow and think 4 inches is nothing, just accept and believe that it's more than the infrastructure of this place can handle. So take the opportunity to stay all cozy in your warmest PJs and fuzzy slippers and keep off the roads, please. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. And today I thought I'd share a few memories that are always at the front of my mind when snow is in the Nashville forecast. A little over 20 years ago, when my kids were really little and my husband was teaching at Bellevue Middle School, Nashville got a snowstorm that hit hard and fast in the middle of the morning. It was the first winter storm after Pedro Garcia became Metro Schools director. He'd lived many years in Iowa, so snow was no big deal to him. And he clearly had little or no patience for this city's nervous anticipation of the wintry weather. Districts in the surrounding counties closed schools preemptively, but Garcia took a wait-and-see approach. So that morning, my husband drove off to work, fully expecting an early dismissal once the snowfall began. The first flakes showed up around 8 a.m., and after an initial sputtering stage of flurries, it turned into a proper snowstorm, absolutely dumping snow on the city. According to the National Weather Service, it was Nashville's biggest snowfall in nearly 7 years, 7 inches in total. Now, to be fair, that's more accumulation than forecasters had predicted, but it's also much more than it takes for snow to cause problems here. And my husband's school became the prime example of what was wrong with playing wait and see with the snow in Middle Tennessee. The dismissal decision did come around mid-morning. I was working evenings back then, so I was home when Chuck called to tell me he'd be able to leave as soon as the students were all out of the door. I went outside and tried to clear a spot in our driveway for him to park. And then I waited and waited and waited. I don't remember when he finally came home, but it was hours later than I'd expected. Hours and many phone calls giving updates about just how badly things were going out in Bellevue. On the other side of Highway 70 from the school is a neighborhood where a lot of the students lived. It's pretty hilly, with narrow, curving streets and steep driveways at places. Some parents got stuck on icy patches, trying to get out to the school to pick up their kids. School buses trying to run a load of elementary-age kids home before they picked up the middle schoolers, well, some of those got stuck too. And every stranded vehicle blocked even more people from getting to the school to pick up kids. It was after dark before the last of the students left the school. Now, part of the problem was that back in 2003, we didn't have anywhere near as much equipment for handling snow and ice as we do now. We get these storms once, maybe twice a year, some years not at all. So buying that specialized equipment is never the highest priority when leaders decide how to spend taxpayer dollars. We do keep increasing the fleet every so often on an incremental basis, and there are noticeably more plows and salt trucks than there used to be, but there's still a lot of room for growth. So, with those limited resources, there's a priority list for where that equipment is used. Major routes first, then secondaries. Generally speaking, neighborhood streets don't get treated or cleared. And as you know from driving around, that means that a lot of our untreated roadways are the kinds that are most dangerous in snowy or icy conditions. We've just got a lot of hills and curves around here. I'm lucky to live now just 3 gently sloping blocks away from a major artery that is near the top of the road clearing list, which is good. My line of work does not come with snow days. I may have to white knuckle it all the way, but as long as I can glide downhill from my house to the main road, I can safely make it into the station in the morning. But honestly, even on those main roads, things can get a little gnarly, and I get to see firsthand our limited fleet of snow-clearing vehicles in action. Which brings me to another memory, a much more concise one. I was driving down one side of a multi-lane thoroughfare while snowplows came towards me on the other side of the median. 2 snowplows were driving side by side in formation, clearing the lanes together, or at least trying to. The plows were bouncing as much as they were scraping. The road behind them was in better shape than before they'd gotten to it, but let's just say the job they were doing would not pass muster up in Canada. And I'm not sharing this to shame anyone who works on clearing our roads from snow. That was a number of years ago, for one thing. I've seen marked improvement in the time since. I bring up that memory as a reminder that as much as we may do to expand the equipment fleet, and as hard as folks work at using that equipment, they don't really get that much practice with it. It would be unrealistic to expect that our crews could truly master all the details. By the time they get in the groove, the snow is melted. The plows go back in storage, possibly for a whole year or two. And as they make that first run today, we've all got to remember that it's the first time in about a year that any of these folks have touched a plow. So it's only natural there's going to be a lot of metaphorical rust to knock off. All of this to say that there's a reason why the standard instruction around here is to just stay home if you can. I came into the station to host Morning Edition, but I'll be heading back to finish my work from home as soon as I get off the air. And if past experience is any indication, on the slow drive back to my house, I will pass a number of cars with license plates from places like Illinois or Michigan, with drivers who I'm sure have a lot of experience driving in the snow. Some of them will be doing great, and some of them will be spinning out from surprise icy patches or just abandoning their car altogether as they learn that driving on a snow day in the South is not quite the same. In just a few minutes, it's become much harder to send books to people in prison. That's coming up after the newscast.
We know that local government isn't the only part of your life.
Like the mayor, I know that city government isn't the only thing you're concerned with.
We are still struggling to find affordable housing.
Particularly with this bus stop.
That's one of the unique challenges with my business.
I'm WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams. I'm working to break down topics like transit, housing, and local government to make sure that when you are thinking about Metro, you're getting the full story. Follow my latest stories at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. School is out, universities are closed, trash won't be collected in Nashville. Life in Middle Tennessee is expected to grind to a halt today as a major snowfall sweeps through. WeGo bus service has been preemptively scaled back, and many government offices are closed or operating virtually, with services paused. Forecasters anticipate 4 to 7 inches of snow for much of the region. Officials are pleading with people to avoid driving and to expect hazardous roads for several days. Melting could occur on Sunday and Monday. Forecasts show some sun and temperatures in the upper 30s and low 40s. The arrival of the storm has prompted an all-hands-on-deck effort from road crews as well as service agencies that have been checking on people who are unhoused and delivering meals to vulnerable seniors, and utilities that are preparing for power outages and damaged water pipes. Officials are emphasizing a pair of messages: stay home if at all possible, and take precautions early, like charging essential electronics and circulating plumbing to avoid frozen pipes. Online now at WPLN.org, you can find an explanatory story about the Arctic blast we're experiencing and learn how Metro prioritizes the clearing of city streets. The Tennessee Department of Correction has released its new execution protocol, and it's much less detailed than the old one. The Associated Press reports the new protocol is only 44 pages, down from around 100 pages previously. Releasing the protocol is a reversal of course. The corrections agency previously said they would keep the document secret because releasing it could reveal the identity of the state's executioner. The new protocol requires just one drug for lethal injections instead of 3, and those responsible for carrying out the execution will now be outside contractors. Governor Bill Lee declared a moratorium on executions in 2022 after prison officials did not follow their own execution protocol, failing to test each drug before each execution. The new protocol does not require drugs to come from a licensed pharmacist, and it removes the requirement that the drugs be tested. 5 men on Tennessee's death row had been given execution dates before the pause. They're among the most likely to undergo the new lethal injection process. 4 more had dates pending before the pause, and there are about 36 men awaiting dates. Some of them still have the opportunity to appeal and could avoid execution. Flu, COVID, and RSV started surging in November and haven't let up, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. WPLN's health reporter Catherine Sweeney tells us there's another virus spiking after the winter holidays.
That other virus is the norovirus. It hits the digestive system. Dr. William Schaffner, a Vanderbilt infectious disease researcher, describes that infection like this.
You feel fine, and then a minute later, you experience explosive vomiting, and then that vomiting continues. You get abdominal pain, you can have diarrhea, fever, and just feel crummy for 2 or 3 days.
He says the biggest threat with this virus is severe dehydration, a risk that's worse in little ones and seniors. Schaffner says certain groups are more likely to catch it.
Populations that are enclosed, confined, such as cruise ships. It's also known as the cruise ship virus. Schools, prisons, nursing homes, senior citizen centers, and the like.
Unlike some other viruses, norovirus particles can live on surfaces for extended periods of time, even weeks. So hand washing is even more important than usual. It can also spread through food. Catherine Sweeney, WPLN News.
Annual data shows home sales in Nashville are largely static, though inventory has gone up. WPLN's Cynthia Abrams reports that numbers still have not rebounded from the post-pandemic slump.
Over the course of the last 12 months, nearly 34,000 homes were sold in Middle Tennessee. That's on par with the amount sold the year before. But that year, 2023, saw a major decrease in home sales, falling by 16%. That's according to data from the Greater Nashville Realtors. As 2024 numbers show, the market still hasn't fully bounced back, though inventory is rising steadily. At the end of the year, there were nearly 1,500 more homes listed for sale than at the end of the previous year.
Certain neighborhoods have more houses selling than others. Those include Antioch, Creve Hall, Sylvan Park, North Nashville, and Hermitage. The new year has kicked off, and are you, like many job searchers, ready to look for a new job? Well, if you're not sure where to start or simply want a different option than scrolling through online job sites, you can visit an American Job Center, a free resource offered by the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Paul Hines leads the American Job Center in Nashville, which recently relocated to Nashville State Community College's East Davidson location.
We offer a variety of different services. The basic core services are unemployment assistance, job search. You have access to our customized workshops, employers, and job fairs. And then we also offer intensive services geared around one-on-one case management, resume assistance, and we can refer you to short-term training opportunities as well.
You can learn more about the local job market and support available for job seekers in the This Is Nashville podcast feed. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. In 2024, the Tennessee Department of Correction changed its policy about who is allowed to mail books to prisoners. The revised rule means nonprofits that have sent free books to prisoners for over 50 years can't serve Tennessee anymore. WPLN's Chardaston has the story.
The Appalachian Prison Book Project, or APBP, lives in an old stone house in Morgantown, West Virginia. It sends free books to prisoners in 6 states. Lydia Welker, the communications coordinator, explains how it works.
We get about 200 letters a week from people incarcerated asking for books that they like to read. They might ask us for a certain author or a genre or a specific title that they want.
Then volunteers check their supply of donated books and try to send the best possible match. State prison systems have strict standards about who can mail books to prisoners. So the nonprofit and others like it work with each state to get on the list of trusted book vendors. APBP has been approved by Tennessee for years. Sometimes a book will still be rejected and returned.
Books with nudity in them, even art statues like Michelangelo's David.
But Welker says one day last April, something unusual started happening to the books they were sending to Tennessee.
We got 4 tote bags worth of books returned from state prisons in Tennessee that same day.
That was all of them. They soon figured out why so many books were being rejected. The Tennessee Department of Correction, or TDOC, had taken it off the list of approved vendors. And the same thing happened to all the other Books to Prisons programs that serve Tennessee. Now, a prisoner who wants a certain book has to buy it, or get someone else to buy it, new, directly from just a few authorized online booksellers and publishers. A spokesperson for TDOC told me the change was made, quote, to mitigate the introduction of contraband through mail. But researchers have found that paper mail accounts for less than 2% of contraband in prisons. Kelly Brotzman directs the Prison Book Program in Massachusetts, which serves jails and prisons in all 50 states. She says this policy change will have a big side effect. It shrinks the number of prisoners who can access books to
almost nobody. Because you don't have the internet as an incarcerated person, you can't order them. Plus, you don't have any money.
In Tennessee, prisoner wages range from 17 cents an hour to $1 an hour for so-called specialty jobs.
You need a loved one on the outside with both the connectivity and the disposable income to order books directly to you from one of those sources.
Prison libraries aren't usually a good option either. Moira Marquis was the lead writer of a PEN America report on censorship in prisons.
Anybody that you talk to who's inside will tell you that the number of books in a prison library is inadequate for the number of people that are there. The number of hours that they're open is inadequate. The staffing is inadequate. The titles haven't been updated in forever.
Prisoners have already seen the effects of the policy change. Brian Hurst is incarcerated at the Turney Center Industrial Complex, about an hour west of Nashville. He says he was getting free books from a church in Pegram that had to stop sending them. He also says reading in prison has changed his life. He writes, "I learned so much about myself. I learned just how vast my interests are, how many things, places, people I am curious about. I found escape, and in that escape, a newfound purpose, a drive in life I did not before possess." That kind of personal growth, Tennessee native Lorenzo Camboa Irvin says he saw it too when he was in federal prison in the 1970s. At the time, the only books allowed at all were Bibles. He helped lead a lawsuit that ended that restriction. Then, he started a political reading group.
People who had been gangsters, they started to read and they started to understand some of the economic and political injustices of society that led them to prison. And it changed their focus entirely. Instead of the use of violence to get the things that you needed in life, it allowed people to understand that there was a new possibility.
The Corrections Agency says there is another way programs can still send books, donating them to prison libraries, rather than mailing them directly to prisoners. But Brotzman of the Prison Book Program in Massachusetts says that's not a reliable way to get a book to a prisoner who wants to read it. Not every prisoner has access to the library.
It is a privilege that can be taken away, and it is very frequently taken away.
How do Books to Prisons programs plan to fight back? Lawsuits are an option, but Brotzman says groups like hers fear retaliation from prison systems if they sign on as plaintiffs. So, for now, Tennessee's policy change will remain in effect, and prisoners will have far less access to the books they want. Char Daston, WPLN News.
We do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday, so subscribe in your favorite podcasting app to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you like this, you'll probably enjoy the Nashvillager newsletter, too. You'll get perspective from more of my colleagues at Nashville Public Radio and links to the stories we're following. Sign up for those daily emails at WPLN.org/Nashvillager. Thanks so much for listening. Stay warm, stay safe. Let's make this day a good one. And we'll catch back up next week.